as opposed to having it be this constitutional format.
Corzine is viewed as a strong candidate should he decide to run for governor next year. A man who counseled both Golan Cipel and Jim McGreevey 2 years ago says he finds McGreevey's version of their relationship more plausible than Cipel's. David Twersky, former editor of the New Jersey Jewish News, says he suspected the two had an intimate relationship almost from the moment McGreevey brought Cipel over from Israel to do campaign outreach to the New Jersey Jewish community.
What is the answer to the question of why a guy as savvy as Jim McGreevey meets a guy in another country for 45 minutes and brings him over here and hands over this sensitive part of his campaign to him? It doesn't make sense.
David Twersky is at the American Jewish Congress in New York now. When he was editor of the Jewish News, he got to know Golan Cipel and already knew McGreevey and was not alone in his suspicions.
The possibility that there was something between these two, I would say through 2001, started growing on a number of people.
After the newspapers started raising suspicions, Twersky says he heard certain state troopers upset about the governor's choice of Joseph Santiago as superintendent were trying to gather proof of a relationship between the governor and his young aide.
I warned him to beware of the fact that state police were probably driving around looking for him at night. He said he was aware of that, but that there was nothing to find because, in fact, he was not gay and not having a sexual relationship with the governor.
Twersky wrote an editorial urging the press and public to lay off Cipel. McGreevey thanked him for it, but then a newspaper article described the governor and Cipel doing a walkthrough together at Cipel's new condo in West Windsor. And Twersky says Charles Kushner took the two of them to New York PR man Howard Rubenstein, who advised both men that Cipel had to resign his government job. The next day, Twersky was scheduled to meet McGreevey and Cipel, but only McGreevey was there.
And I asked the governor, is Golan joining us? And he said, well, we were at Howard Rubenstein yesterday, and this is what happened. And, you know, I've reluctantly accepted Golan's resignation. And he then said to me, why are people picking on this poor Golan Cipel? I mean, he's such a nice guy. He never hurt anyone. What did he ever do to anyone that they're all swimming around trying to destroy him? And I said, well, you know what this is about, Governor. And he said, no, I don't know what it's about. I said, you know what this is about. I really didn't feel comfortable talking about this. And he said, no, I don't know what it's about. Why don't you tell me? And I said, well, it's about that they think you're gay and that you're having a relationship with Golan. And he said, oh, that old thing, I can't believe they're bringing that up again, which it is true on deep reflection, is not exactly a denial.
Twersky says at that point he was certain there was a sexual relationship. Look at the job McGreevey gave Cipel.
It's almost as if McGreevey was so torn up about this inside that he left a rather large clue, you know, in his path so that we would trip over it at some point, because the notion that a guy with his political shrewdness and skills would make such a colossal error of judgment as to attempt to hide Golan Cipel in a Homeland Security liaison office 4.5 months and think he can hide him there 4.5 months after 9/11 is, to me, preposterous. He was hiding him under a bright light.
Cipel, he says, did not seem like a man being preyed upon.
I saw them together. I frequently had lunch with him. I frequently spoke with him on the phone. He was not a man who seemed to be in particular tension or stress. The only stress was when the journalists started asking questions about his qualifications and started hunting down that story. So unless he was the most brilliant actor throughout this period, his own story doesn't seem to fit with the facts as I saw them and as I knew them close at hand.
McGreevey's version of the affair makes more sense, he says, and he's revised his view of Cipel as a bright, normal fellow.
I now think that he's exceedingly egocentric, that it's all about him, and that he took a situation where he really wasn't owed anything and decided to, you know, wring out of it, you know, a couple of $1 million to set himself up. I don't have any other explanation for this behavior. I just can't understand it in any other way.
Twersky also knows Charles Kushner and says he cannot conceive that there is any connection between Kushner's downfall and Cipel's decision to go after the governor. We reached out to Cipel's lawyer today, Alan Lowy in New York, but his voice mailbox is full, as it has been almost every day since last Monday. If you use the Easy Pass lane on the Bayonne Bridge, you can now go faster. The speed limit has been raised from 15 to 25